James Garner has opened the floodgates to a long-buried secret. Plenty of untold stories abound in Hollywood. It all started on the set of 1963's renowned war film, The Great Escape. However, tensions were rising behind the scenes, particularly between Garner and Charles Bronson, who was achieving stardom. For years, Garner remained silent out of fear of exacerbating the situation. However, he is now speaking out. He feels passionately about what he says about Bronson, and it's shocking. Why did the altercation escalate? For how long did the rage persist? So, what nearly escalated into a confrontation? To find out, continue listening. A rough coming-of-age story set during some of the darkest years in American history, James Garner's story is a riveting read. Even as a young man, he had it tough. He entered this world in Norman, Oklahoma, amid the depths of the Great Depression. The family was well supported by James's dad, Weldon Bumner, who worked tirelessly as a hardware store owner. Tragically, though, James was only 4 years old when it happened. His mother was a Cherokee. A failed abortion was his primary cause of her death, James would claim years later. Tragically, Weldon's grocery store caught fire shortly thereafter. After his business failed, Weldon had no choice but to turn to rug laying as a means of subsistence. However, his drinking problem intensified alongside his new job, and his home turned into a terrifying place. He insisted his sons sing at supper after he returned home inebriated. Saying no would result in defeat. Weldon eventually sent his sons to live with different relatives because things had gotten so bad. He seemed to be aware that he was unprepared to become a father. The boys were told to return home by Weldon after he got married again. The fact that that occurred was unfortunate. Weldon dubbed his new wife Wilma Red, and she was even more aggressive and violent than he was. She threatened to use sticks on the boys unless they were prepared. James was hit the hardest. Red not only hit him, but she also made fun of him by having him wear her clothes and cosmetics. By the time James reached his early teens, he had reached his lowest point. A part of Red's body shattered during one of his 13th year strikes. He resisted, knocked her down, and began to strangle her. His father had to drag him away. Finally, James admitted that he was about to kill her if his dad hadn't intervened. After that terrifying incident, what did Weldon do? Just like before, he departed. James was left to fend for himself while he abandoned his children. James persisted despite all obstacles. When he joined the Merchant Navy at the age of 16, he lied about his age and dropped out of high school. Concurrently, World War II was drawing to a close. Unfortunately, he became extremely ill from being in the water and promptly departed. He did everything from working as a petrol station clerk to making carpets and even modeling knickers when he got back to land. He got his first taste of the entertainment industry with that modeling gig. After returning to live with his dad in New York, James relocated to Los Angeles in 1950. Even though this was his second visit to the city, he remained bewildered and confused about his life's direction. Afterwards, the Korean War occurred. Indeed, James was the first Oklahoman to be selected since he was still a resident of the state. For 9 arduous months, he fought with the 24th Division's 5th Regimental Combat Team. His accounts of the war were brutal and real, like scenes from action flicks. On his second day in Korea, he was hit in the hand and face by gunpowder. Finally, in a horrific incident of friendly fire, U.S. aircraft mistakenly believed his unit to be an enemy and opened fire on them. James dove for cover after taking a blow to the back. They plummeted from a height while he struggled to escape from a foxhole. His shoulder and knees were both aggravated by his actions. He concluded by saying that the soldiers treated him like any other volunteer. James's eccentricities shone through even in combat. One night, while on patrol, he detected the pungent aroma of garlic, which sent a shiver down his spine. Onions and garlic were two things he truly disliked. The slightest hint of improper pan washing would still be detectable to him. That night, He detected the scent of approaching Chinese or North Korean forces. His unit was prepared because he informed everyone on the queue. After returning from the war, James worked odd jobs around Los Angeles. Eventually, he and his dad were back to laying rugs. Fate also played a role when he stopped at a petrol station to fill up his tank. Paul Gregory informed James that he was planning to launch a talent agency when they crossed paths. Paul had the impression that James had the makings of a talented actor. James didn't give it much consideration when it happened. James eventually made it inside a talent agency after seeing Paul's name on the door after all these years. Everything was altered by that unannounced visit. After Paul took a chance on James, he landed his first acting role in Paul's production of the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial. James Garner was the bee's knees in 1957. In that year, he co-starred with Marlon Brando in Sayonara and rose to fame playing the role of the brash, charismatic gambler Brett Maverick on the hit television series Maverick. Following brothers Bart and Brett as they traverse the American West in quest of riches, excitement, and the occasional poker match was a common plot point in the show. Brett was portrayed by Garner, while Bart was by Jack Kelly. They took turns playing the lead characters in each episode. It was immediately apparent that James Garner was the standout. Because he was chill, easygoing, and sneakily funny, he was well liked by many. You couldn't call him a typical cowboy shooter. He could win without resorting to violence or fist fights, and he was charming and intelligent. After the first few seasons, everything started to go swimmingly. Many people became familiar with Garner as he became famous in the popular Western genre, but then 1960 happened, and everything came to a halt. Nothing came out of Hollywood during the Writers Guild of America strike. Updates to Maverick were halted, as they were for many other shows. The 52-week contract Garner had signed with Warner Brothers was the crux of the matter. The show was hugely successful, but his weekly salary of $1,250.00 was pitiful. Due to the lack of scripts, the company decided not to pay him. Garner was completely opposed to that. After becoming sick of being treated like a pawn by the company, James Garner decided to speak out. He obtained a resounding victory after suing Warner Brothers for breach of contract. While they were on strike, the court sided with him and made it plain that the company couldn't simply stop paying him. The situation was not improved when Warner Brothers offered Garner a new deal. However, Garner had already made up his mind. For example, he yearned for the independence to choose his own career and life trajectory. Finally, he averted his gaze from Maverick. However, for both him and the show's viewers, that was it. The year 1963 followed. The Great Escape quickly rose to prominence upon its release, becoming a legendary war film. A daring prison break, an exciting plot, and a stellar cast of Hollywood actors and actresses made this film a must-see. The leader was none other than the incomparably awesome Steve McQueen. Because of the film, he achieved true stardom in the film industry. Behind the scenes, particularly between Charles Bronson and James Garner, two of the film's leading actors, was where the real drama resided, despite the abundance of action on screen. Back then, Bronson wasn't the rough-and-tumble actor he would later become. In Hollywood, he was still making progress. However, Garner was already in a fantastic mood following his triumph on Maverick. You'd think these two would treat each other with dignity the moment they stepped foot in a studio. However, according to James Garner, that is completely false. It appears like Bronson and Garner had a rocky relationship right from the bat. Garner continued by saying more about Bronson. He described him as icy, impolite, and nasty. Garner continued praising Bronson's toughness for decades after the film ended due to the terrible fighting. Upon Bronson's passing in the early 2000s, Garner at last penned his memoir and divulged all those intimate anecdotes. His depiction of the man was that of an unsociable and difficult worker. However, Bronson wasn't the only issue Garner faced while filming. The movie's breakout star, his friend Steve McQueen, was just as vulnerable. According to Garner, while filming, McQueen let his pride get the better of him. Even yet, Garner admitted that Steve did have his diva moments, but ultimately let it go, saying that it was just because he loved playing the part. Bronson, what about him? That wrath persisted for an extremely lengthy period. To get to the bottom of what went wrong, let's examine the group's collaborative efforts. Garner was a TV star who was prepared to make the jump to film, while McQueen was the golden boy. However, Bronson still had something to offer. Perhaps he felt the need to inflate his ego in order to match the status of the other famous people. As far as anyone can tell, he pretended to be famous and then blew himself up. A lot of people were furious when Garner said that Bronson wanted to dominate the set, not because he cared about the part. Years later, Garner shared a tale that summed everything up. After the film ended, he invited Bronson over for a casual card game. It might have been a gesture of goodwill or an effort to be courteous for the last time. However, things swiftly deteriorated. Both Garner and a young stagehand who was bankrupt and couldn't afford to lose that much money were involved in a bet that Bronson attempted to back out of. Garner was not going to approve. He took Bronson to court to get the $50.00 he owed the child. Things became difficult at that point. Overly enraged, Blaine nearly started a fight with the other person. When Garner asked Bronson to come over, that was it. After that, their argument ended. Feelings of anxiety persisted even after The Great Escape's success. When Charles Bronson stated he would never collaborate with James Garner again, he truly meant it. However, destiny intervened. Two men, separated by years, had dinner together, each accompanied by his wife. Garner was accompanied by his wife Lois Clark, while Bronson was accompanied by Jill Ireland. They conversed as if they were long-lost friends, and the ladies hit it off immediately. The guys? Not at all. Sitting rigidly, Garner and Bronson said nothing. Attempting to avoid another fight, they hoped to make it through the night. The best was still to come, though, for James Garner. The Rockford Files was an immediate smash upon its 1974 television debut. However, this was no ordinary police show. It stood out and was unique. James Garner played the role of Jim Rockford. As a private investigator, Jim Rockford has a checkered past, a dilapidated beach trailer, and a criminal record. All the while, that iconic gold Pontiac Firebird roared along, adding to his charisma and wit. What made Rockford stand out from other action heroes of his time was fascinating. Nothing about him was smooth or showy. A little bit of bad luck never stopped him from being tough, relatable, and funny. Plus, what's great, Garner was adamant about carrying out all of his pranks, whether it was engaging in high-speed car chases or punching people in parking lots. He preferred no action doubles, so things stayed authentic. Grittiness, a vehicle, and Garner were the only things needed. An intriguing aspect of the Rockford Files is the relative absence of firearms in favor of car chases and ingenious plot twists. Yet those strategies, they failed to amuse. Garner started practicing driving when he was in his early film career. He was already an expert driver when Rockford arrived. As the years passed, though, he began to feel the strain of performing in front of an audience. He started to feel pain in his back and knees. His doctor advised him to take it easy when they reached season 6. Something crucial was visible to Garner there. Being the one putting on the shows was essential to his Jim Rockford persona. Fox News was also aware of it. The show's continued existence was questionable without him as its focal point, particularly given the increasing production cost. Garner was experiencing more than simply physical pain, though. He sought a share of the profits from the shows and was thus in court with NBC. He also underwent extensive heart surgery simultaneously. Despite his personal and professional struggles, he had worked tirelessly to ensure the success of the Rockford Files. The show's success meant that its production costs were high. Had we a Firebird here? It was replaced for every season due to the frequency with which it was broken during filming. Also, the expense of fixing things after nearly every performance is substantial. The increased expenses of guest stars and more intricate scenes were making it difficult for NBC to cover their costs. Regardless, the show's charisma was contagious. Every episode began with the phone joke, which was a beloved quirk by fans. The phone went unanswered by Rockford. Messages would be varied and at times humorous every time. It became so challenging to generate fresh jokes on a weekly basis that the writers began soliciting suggestions from any NBC employee. A great deal of expertise was also applied in the background. The Sopranos' David Chase also composed the show's memorable theme song. That was composed by Mike Post, who was also responsible for the theme song for Law and Order. Despite the many problems that occurred behind the scenes and the physical toll it took on James Garner, his show The Rockford Files continued to be a huge hit. It was a message, not merely a return to television. This demonstrated that even after Maverick, he possessed the charisma, determination, and apparent charisma. Doing his own stunts became old for him, unlike when he was younger. His health wasn't the only thing that was taking a hit as the accidents kept piling up. Production cost increases exacerbated the problem. The end outcome? It wasn't that viewers stopped tuning in, rather the show ran its course. But Garner still wasn't prepared to ease up just yet. In the 2000s, he continued to make appearances and flaunt his wealth. Space Cowboys 2000 featured him alongside Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, and Tommy Lee Jones. A team of reactivated astronauts are summoned to repair a decommissioned Cold War satellite in the film. Thanks to its combination of action, humor, and nostalgia, the film was a blast to watch. Playing elderly heroes who could still turn the tide, 4 A-listers stole the show. Behind the scenes, things were far from smooth as they appeared on TV. The players apparently had a miserable experience donning their spacesuits, which were cumbersome, heavy, and severely restricted their mobility. Tommy Lee Jones, the group's youngest member at 53 years old, thought they were excessively uncomfortable. Also, it wasn't mere rhetoric. Truthfully, Donald Sutherland injured his knee after tripping backwards while dressed for a business meeting. James Garner, who was 72 years old when the incident occurred, also fell and broke his shoulder while filming the scene. The issue, though, is that despite their injuries, Sutherland and Garner continued firing. It seems more like a story than a real-life event, but someone stepped in to lend a hand. He promptly assisted Garner and even realigned his shoulder. Clint did what he did because of his knowledge of shoulder dislocations gained while filming a film in the 1970 Fs. Never one to take it easy, Garner never went home to rest. That day he stopped shooting, I assure you. Nonetheless, Eastwood revealed in retrospect that he needed a lot more time to recover from his shoulder issues and return to playing. Also, he never claimed that the accident was due to his advanced age. He assured her it was simply his fault. It was only when the characters had to bear their behinds in a scene that he even acknowledged that the group might not be performing up to par. He later joked about how he searched high and low for a place to hide, but came up empty-handed. The fact that gravity had already operated made him laugh. As a result of Garner's continued antics, his situation deteriorated over time. While filming action sequences and physical comedy, he frequently injures his back and knees. As he grew older, the cumulative effects of all those accidents became apparent. For every 5-year hiatus from acting, he underwent multiple surgeries, including those on his knees. Eventually, he had to cut out performing altogether. He was in more than just physical pain. To remove a blockage, Garner underwent cardiac surgery in 1988. He underwent additional surgery in 2008 following a minor stroke. Playing Jim Rockford for 6 long, intense seasons was incredibly difficult. His renown-inspiring tenacity and determination never wavered. Garner said that a single accident set off a domino effect. When asked why he permanently left the Rockford Files, Because of the pain in one leg, the other one started to hurt. His torso collapsed. The medicine had an adverse effect on his stomach, and he also began to feel worse emotionally. Like a machine that has been continuously pushed for decades without rest, the body gradually gave out. On top of that, he suffered from a persistent lung condition for 4 long years. Medications failed to alleviate the obstruction caused by a bone growth in one of his lungs. He simply had to deal with that on a daily basis. It weighed him down and was constant. Many people believe that stress contributed to his health issues. He developed ulcers and temporarily severed ties with his wife during a period of intense stress in his career in the 1970s. According to Garner, he would frequently travel between his rented house in the valley and Canada during those breaks. He was quick to clarify, though, that the separation wasn't due to relationship issues, but rather the difficulty of his work. Eventually, Garner and his wife reconciled, and they remained a married couple until his death in 2014. He passed away at 86 years of age due to a heart attack. She also tied the knot in October of 2021, exactly 7 years after he did. James Garner, who was tough, hilarious, and charming, was a rock for everyone. Charming personality that endeared him to many for many years.